So I flew from Missouri. I got to Atlanta and got to my gate and figured that, well, there's got to be some other missionaries around here. And I saw like a group of suits, and they're all chatting like they're best friends from high school. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to fit in. And so, well, it all turned out to be pretty cool. And we jumped on the plane together and we flew to Bogota. And we got off, and you know, we're all just like giddy kids. I remember seeing the signs, you know, Bienvenido a Bogota, a Colombia. And I didn't understand anything, you know. And we get there and we like just kind of like meander and like make our way through customs. Nobody like speaks Spanish really. Make our way through customs. We get outside and there's nobody to receive us. And so we're just like standing there, all these gringos. And there was one guy whose parents are from Guatemala. And like after like 15 minutes of us just standing there with all our stuff, he like stops a guy and like in this broken Spanish, because he didn't even speak that well. He was like, hey, can you like call somebody with your phone? And then about another 15 minutes later, some guy showed up and was like, you guys come with me. And so we just followed him. I was like, well, it must be him. He just took us to a van and we threw all our stuff in and crammed in there like sardines, and they drove us to the MTC. We get the MTC and it has a big fence around it. And it was like, wow, this is kind of crazy. But then like we were in the MTC for 6 weeks and the food was like good like the first 3. And then you like started getting to you. And we could never really go outside the compound except when we did service on P days. So we'd always rush to grab the broom so we could sweep outside of the compound, because that was like our little taste of freedom. I enjoyed that a lot. Except the Americans, the gringos, we got 1 P day, because the Latins would come in groups of 2 weeks. And they stay with us and we'd make really good friends, and then they go. And then they come, and then they go. And the last P day that we had, or the second to last, when the Latins were all gone, they let us out, the gringos, and we got to go to the Gold Museum at Bogota, which like has all the Nephite stuff they made. And we got to go to a church called Mazarate, which is on top of a mountain, a really tall mountain. It's this white church, and we took a gondola up there and we could see the whole city of Bogota. Well, we could actually only see 3/5 of it. It was such a big city. It's like 8 million people or something, huge. And so that was Bogota. I didn't really, that was like my first experience there. I did not speak very much Spanish. They threw us out one day to proselyte, 2 Americans together, and it started to rain. And so we can't speak Spanish, and we're like trying to talk to these people in the rain. And like I'd grabbed my companion's name tag on accident, so my name wasn't even Elder Roberts. But it was so fun. I had so much fun doing that out there. We like offered a girl an umbrella so that we could talk to her, but then like none of our pens would write because everything was wet. But it was like our first experience trying to actually be missionaries in Colombia. It was pretty fun. Well, Colombia has a lot of red tape. It's a bureaucratic system. Their immigration sometimes holds up. My visa, I guess they really like went to town on it, because it expired 2 weeks before my entry date. So like it started 2 weeks before my entry date, so it expired 2 weeks before my entry date. But there were some elders that couldn't get their visas in time, so they had to go to the Provo one. But I think that at the time, that was March, and they changed the age in October. So they were getting huge influxes of missionaries, to the point where some of the rooms were like where they stuffed us in the MTC, like, I mean, they were tiny, and they had like 6 missionaries in there. So like they just put their suitcases on their beds during the day so they could walk around in the room. And they had like, it grew from like 100 to over 200 in a matter of a month. So they had like a lot of big logistic problems. I think that they were just shoving any missionaries out of there that they could, just to free up room at Provo. Because we had 2 guys who went to Ecuador, but they went to they were in our MTC group. So for the most part, it's people who go to Colombia. If they can ship them off to Colombia right away, they will. And then they throw in some, like, I think some, like, you know, the overflow. Anybody else who's going to nearby countries.